Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now, on Saturday, President Trump will reach his 100th day in the White House. And it has been a bumpy ride for the new incumbent, and this week has seen a flurry of activity on both foreign and domestic fronts. But has he made any progress on those big campaign promises? Our Washington correspondent, Kylie Morris, joins us now. Kylie, what's the answer to that?
Well, Kathy, it has been a very important week for the president to look busy. This 100-day mark is a popular measure in America for assessing a new administration. And to answer you in comparative terms, well, President Trump's polling is historically low. He's failed to deliver on key policy promises, certainly immigration and healthcare, where he's suffered at the hands of his own party in Congress. And there does remain a sizable chunk of the country that opposes everything he tries to do. The other half, though, are enamoured and continue to feel inspired. They hear the rhetoric on jobs and the economy, and they see the missiles flying and feel that now, finally, there is a man of action in the White House who has their interests at heart. A reminder of that bumpy road today with the Pentagon, though, now investigating Russian payments to the former National Security Advisor Mike Flynn, and new questions over how President Trump can promise to cut corporate tax to 15%, an announcement made yesterday, without blowing out the deficit. One thing, though, I think everyone can agree on, America has never seen a president like Donald Trump before.
I, Franklin Delano Roosevelt,
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute
the office of the President of the United States and will to the best
of my ability
preserve,
protect, and defend
the Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
It's going to be only America first. America first.
It's nearly 100 days and the reviews are coming in for the most brash, risky, divisive president ever to place his hand on the Lincoln Bible.
And so with the signing of this executive order...
In office, President Trump has translated his aggressive campaign rhetoric into a volley of executive orders, seizing control of America's bureaucratic machinery, inflaming his enemies but thrilling his supporters.
I'm not expecting him to be like every other president we've ever had. To do that would be un-Trump-like.
I think he's doing a good job. I am behind him 100%.
Well, it's been an interesting transition. Has moments of boredom and moments of sheer terror.
York in Pennsylvania is one of 3 counties nationwide that swung the election for Donald Trump. We went to its historic market for lunch and found some true believers.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm a Republican, but I voted for him because he was telling me I'm going to be different. And the truth is, he has been different so far.
I always pray for our leaders. I want the best for them. I want to be a good citizen. At the same time, I am concerned.
Protection of the nation from foreign terrorist entry.
From week 1, there was evidence revealed by the Muslim travel ban that converting campaign promises into policy would be a challenge.
And he has to accept the responsibility for that it wasn't clarified exactly what the purposes were for. I'm not biased against Muslims, but I support the plan.
Within days of the protest that followed his executive order banning citizens from 6 Muslim-majority countries, as well as refugees, from travelling to the United States, the courts shut the order down. It's on its way to the Supreme Court. As for the border wall Mexico was meant to pay for, it's still in the development stage.
We definitely, desperately need the wall.
We can build a wall. We can ban anybody from coming in, but we've still got crazy people shooting people in schools. I think we need to focus on what's going on right here.
The America First president surprised when he ordered the firing of Tomahawk missiles after the Syrian government used chemical weapons, a direct reply to Russia's ally, Bashar al-Assad.
But you don't negotiate from weakness, you negotiate from strength. You let them know that, hey, we're still number one. I think Putin, once he gets to know Trump, he'll understand that, hey, this is a no-nonsense guy. This is going to be like dealing with Reagan. You know, there's a line. Don't cross it.
Tonight I ordered a targeted military strike.
I think that's something America had to do, and I think that was a place where he finally, if anybody else didn't think so, he was already my president, and everybody should get on board, but that's where, for me, it was sealed the deal.
But not everyone else is ready to get on board. His strongman approach, hardly a unanimous success.
I think he's used to being the boss, and the president is not the boss of the country. And I think he's having a hard time getting people to work together.
Raise your right hand.
How did this happen? I guess I'm in a little bit of shock. The values that I was given is that we are all one people, and that we're neighbors, and we're friends, and we're a community. We still are. And again, I just don't want other people to judge us or think that that is what America is.
Breaking overnight, Michael Flynn resigns as President Trump's national security advisor.
I turn on the TV, open the newspapers, and I see stories of chaos. Chaos. Yet it is the exact opposite. This administration is running like a fine-tuned machine.
In truth, there is chaos. Senior staff with undeclared links to Russia, a congressional disaster on healthcare. But those who chose the Trump machine aren't worried.
His polling isn't great.
All those fears, everything that everybody thought, the government didn't blow up, our country's still working, the trains are still on time.
What do you want to see more of from him?
You know, just don't let people push him around, and maybe think before he speaks sometimes.
100 days and Project Trump is only just getting started. So I think what's clear from those conversations with people in York, in Pennsylvania, is that if you were a Trump supporter before the election, you still are now. The failure to enact immigration reform, you probably think is the fault of the courts. The failure on healthcare, that's not down to Donald Trump either. That's the fault of Congress. And any questions of character are overblown by the mainstream media, who for many people are the enemy. Now that is classic strategy from key advisor Steve Bannon, and I've got to say it's certainly a more common experience for us now to speak to Trump voters who don't want to be interviewed because they see the media as the enemy. Steve Bannon, though, interestingly, has been less visible over the past month or so after some of these congressional failures, and there's certainly tension, it seems, between nationalists like him and family power players like Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump. For Trump voters, though, what is clear is the more disruptive he is, the more evidence that Donald Trump is having an effect. For everyone else, though, what looks like disruption and chaos is exactly that. We'll have another report from here tomorrow on resistance to the Trump presidency, 100 days in, and does anyone have a plan?
Thanks, Kylie.
Well, on Saturday, Donald Trump will have been president and commander-in-chief for 100 days. He's got very little legislation through Congress, and his approval ratings don't look good. 41%, substantially lower than any other modern president at this stage in his term. But how is he faring among the working-class white voters who ditched the Democrats and propelled him to the White House on the promise that he would make America great again by making mines, factories and steel mills come back to life? Our diplomatic editor, Mark Urban, has been to Detroit, where blue-collar workers put all their hopes in Donald Trump.
If you want to see rusted out factories scattered like tombstones, start in Detroit. Michigan voted twice for Obama, but last November was critical to Trump's victory.
I love the way you walk. I love the way you walk.
With its recent history of industrial decline, his Make America Great Again message carried the state.
When they heard somebody say, I'm going to remember you, I'm going to speak directly to you, I'm going to fix the problem, I'm the man to do it based on my experience, he won over the hearts and minds of the tens of millions of people, and including the Michiganders that turned the state red.
I like the way you twitch. You my babe, I got my eyes on you.
So where better to look for the voters' verdict on those first 100 days in office? Of course, in a neighborhood like this in Detroit, many of the first 100 days issues that resonate in Washington have no meaning whatsoever. And if you come here looking for signs of buyer's regret on the part of Trump voters, you'll be disappointed. In the post-apocalyptic remains of Detroit's industrial heyday, Alan Hill scavenges metal and looks to his president for change.
People have faith in Trump. You know, prior to that, previous administration seemed to kind of alienate people's ideas, you know, broke their dreams. And Trump has put a lot of faith back into the American dream.
And out where they still produce vehicles in vast quantities, you'll hear similar expressions of faith in the president.
50% of the union members in my plant voted for Donald Trump.
Across the road from the Ford plant where he works, Brian Panabacker explained why so many blue-collar workers here deserted the Democrats and why Trump's record so far doesn't disappoint.
I am 100% satisfied with Donald Trump's efforts to this point. I think he has fought very hard to do exactly what he pledged to do in terms of immigration policy, securing our borders, rebuilding our military. I have been very disappointed, however, with Congress, both Democrats and Republicans, for them not being able to implement Donald Trump's legislative agenda.
Of course, there are plenty of Trump critics here too, most notably for his immigration executive orders.
The largest Muslim population in the country is in my district. The targeting of people because of their faith, of religion, is really startling me. I know he talked about it, but you just don't understand how these communities are being divided with fear and hatred. But in some ways, it's also communities that are coming together that you've never seen come together before. And that gives you a feeling of hope in some ways, but this isn't who America is.
Issues of security, national and economic, have long run harmoniously together in this state. The Yankee Museum maintains this pristine B-17, and it was here, when it opened at Willow Run, Michigan, that the world's largest factory was built.
And they're coming off the assembly line as fast as the Fords used to.
They constructed more than 8,000 Liberator bombers here, applying the car industry's assembly line methods to weapons of war.
The fact of the matter was every 55 minutes an airplane was coming off a production line, just this plant alone. And Germany, Japan, our enemies in the Mediterranean, there was no way to be able to compete with that type of production.
So President Trump came to Willow Run last month, promising to revive the car industry.
Thank you very much. This facility, this city, and this nation will once again shine with industrial might.
So this, it's clear, is the Trump style, a permanent campaign and a one-man assembly line of extravagant promises. One reason why Trump came to Willow Run is because here, on a part of the old bomber factory, they're planning a major new test facility for the automated vehicles of the future. So what do those who met him think of Trump's promise to bring car jobs back?
I can't comment on, or I couldn't hazard a guess on what that will mean for jobs in the auto industry. I will say this, that this technology is going to revolutionize the way we think about moving people and goods. And to that extent, the United States, if we don't focus on this technology, we will lose a lot of more jobs that are around engineering and making the system work, making vehicles work.
Near the plant, the Bomber Diner serves up bomber burgers and a blitz of breakfast calories. It's popular with veterans, and those who've served have often been unimpressed with their new president's intemperate use of language.
He's learning how complex things are. He thought they were simple.
He said, who knew healthcare could be so complicated? Now he's saying, who knew that international relations could be so complicated? Who knew that Korea or Syria could be so complicated? Well, it's extremely complicated. And so he's really done nothing in 100 days other than get a Supreme Court judge put on the bench.
So what, I asked the woman who ran Trump's campaign in this state, should we make of the discarded promises or admissions that he hadn't realized it was all so complicated?
That's what the American people wanted. We wanted somebody to say, wow, this is tougher than I imagined. I think that level of earnestness and honesty speaks to the voters that elected him. For the president to say this is tougher than I thought it was going to be, or I'm surprised at how complicated it is, I think that speaks to his strength as a man, as a person, to be willing to say that.
And if the issue of preserving American jobs is paramount here now, what to make of this? Last month, General Motors started shedding more than 1,000 jobs at a Michigan plant. Some are going elsewhere in the US, but each new factory announcement now gets scrutinized as a success or failure for Trump and the fight against globalization. Now, you'll hear any number of reasons advanced for why things like this are still happening. From the strength of the dollar, that's one that President Trump himself has used, through to people here locally blaming uncompetitive trading practices by their rivals, dumping of goods, cheaper production elsewhere, all of that kind of language. And it is that sort of message which, of course, carried President Trump to power, but which also now informs the debate in a place like this, where even some leading members of the Democratic Party are echoing the president's protectionist language.
What we need is a level playing field. So we need to make sure that people aren't manipulating their currency. That's what I want to see. I want to see currency manipulation enforcement.
Now, I'm hearing you as a Democrat congresswoman effectively urging Trump to remain true to his campaign platform.
But I've said, you'll go look, you'll find me in August of 2015. I'm really and said Donald Trump was exciting people. And I have said, you know, I think people, I don't agree with him on many things he's done. My responsibility is to work for the working men and women of my district. And if he's willing to do something that's going to fix bad trade policies that have hurt their jobs, my job is to work with him to do that.
Viewed from Michigan or Middle America more generally, the effort to revive the economy and protect jobs form the central narrative of Trump's administration so far. In that sense, he's redefined politics here, even if he's far from demonstrating that he's found the answers.
I got my eyes on you.
Well, Mark is in Washington tonight. Mark, we saw Trump supporters there standing by their man, and something has become a little bit clearer on how he wants to kickstart the economy.
Well, absolutely, Kirsty. I mean, if you are in a place like Michigan, you think, how on earth can you really reverse the tide of industrial decline? Now, one of the key answers unveiled this week is an ambitious plan for tax reform. It's being billed as the most ambitious ever. Central to that are plans announced by the Treasury Secretary here to cut corporation taxes by a huge margin, from 35% of profit to just 15%, to cut personal taxation bands from 7 to 3 and reduce the overall burden of personal taxation. Now, they argue that if they cut these corporate taxes, many companies, famously Apple, which has kept hundreds of billions in profits overseas, will repatriate those monies, the tax take will go up, and offset the fact that obviously by cutting it from 35 to 15%, you've got a massive decrease in your tax. And that money, as it's repatriated, could also be used to fund R&D and new factories and all the rest of it. Now, that is their message, but many Republicans in the Senate and Congress don't believe that message. They feel that this is a dangerous gamble, that the loss of tax receipts could easily be $1 trillion in the first few years of this ambitious change, and that how on earth would it be funded other than by running up huge new debt? That, if you like, will be the central gamble of the Trump platform to revive the economy.
Mark, thanks very much indeed.
I've been getting away with it all my